listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Hello there, IELTS podcast listeners. In this tutorial, we're jumping into some recent questions seen by students. Our students who are taking the test and reporting back to us, and also questions we've seen around the web posted by other students taking the IELTS exam. Now, I'm going to give you some sample answers here. We're mainly going to look at the idea generation part and the paragraph structure and the whole sort of like the essay writing structure. Obviously, the answers that I'm going to give you are just suggestions. We all know in the IELTS exam that it's not really a test of your knowledge. It's not really a test if you've got the right or wrong answer, in that the right or wrong answer is mainly a language question. This is a language test after all. So listen to how I break down these questions, how I plan the answers, and just how I organise my ideas, and it'll give you a great insight for when you are doing your IELTS writing test or when you're practicing at home. So as I said, these are recent questions seen by students very, very recently, the new batch, so to speak. So let's jump into the first one. Nowadays, many people prefer to buy famous brands of clothes, cars and other items. What are the reasons for this? Do you think it is a positive or negative development? Right, so this one's quite straightforward. 2 questions. Body paragraph 1, what are the reasons people buy famous brands of clothes, cars and other items? Quite straightforward. Body paragraph 2, do you think it's positive or negative development? I'm going to say, you can argue both ways. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to say it's a negative one. But what is important is that I develop the answer. It's a negative development because it's making people more, consumeristic, materialistic. It's becoming a more consumer-driven society. Other values, instead of fame, are getting pushed to the side. So other values such as, environmental awareness, such as child labour, such as fair working practices, are getting pushed aside by the more famous brands, which might not be so conscious. Okay, so that was just sort of like a few ideas there, but let's focus on body paragraph 1. What are the reasons for this? The reasons people prefer to buy famous brands of clothes, I think, are because of status, to show your wealth, because of the associated, the quality associated with these famous brands. The other reasons are because of the advertisements of these and the product endorsement by famous celebrities. So I've got a few different reasons. Now, when I'm planning my essay, there's nothing wrong with brainstorming. Some tutors, obviously not very good tutors, think that brainstorming is a crime. It's obviously not. When you're at home, you can brainstorm, you can start developing this muscle, this idea generation muscle. In the exam, obviously, you're not going to sit down for 20 minutes making a nice, brainstorming chart, obviously. But when you're at home, you can spend some time on this, especially if it's a weak area for you. Spend some time, develop this skill, jot down a few ideas, choose the best. You can do this numerous times. Nothing wrong with it. And while you're doing this, you're perfecting this skill, you're getting better, and then in your exam, it's going to come much more automatic and easier. That's why on our online course, we encourage the students. Well, we include in that before they even start writing essays, just to send us sample ideas of 4 different essays, just to make sure they're on the right track and they've developed this muscle, this skill to a competent level. So let's go. What are the reasons for this? As I said, advertising, sports endorsement. Actually, what I would do is I'd list a few different reasons and then maybe develop my last two. So I could say advertising, status and sports endorsement. Okay. For example, with regards to status, it is well known in marketing that a lot of people want to be seen as wealthy, as rich, and a lot of the values that some brands might have want to be associated with the purchaser, okay? Or a lot of the values can appear to come along with the brand, and the purchaser might believe they now have might have similar values. When you're developing it, this is a good reason for brainstorming. You could see even myself, a native English speaker, getting mixed up trying to sort of like develop this. So I probably wouldn't develop that idea, I'd probably just go back to the more simple idea. This is what I've said in previous tutorials, go for simple ideas that are easier to explain. So I'll probably just go for advertising, because a lot of people see these brands, they want it to be associated with this brand. For example, Nike has this aggressive athletic brand, and people want to be seen as also athletic and aggressive and as winners, and this largely explains sports endorsements as well. For example, Rafa Nadal, the famous Spanish tennis player, has an endorsement from Adidas for over 300 million a year, for over 20 million a year to wear Adidas clothing. This in turn generates demand as people aspire to be like Rafa Nadal, and one way they can get closer is by wearing the same clothes as he does. Okay, so, and then I'd summarize and say, okay, so there's various reasons for this, largely down to status, advertising, marketing, and sports endorsements, something like that. Okay, and that's it. That's body paragraph 1. I did make a meal of it at first, but if I was at home preparing, I'd probably just cross that one out, just mention it briefly, but not go into detail, because it was a little bit overcomplicated for this. Okay, just go with advertising, Ben. It's quite straightforward. Everybody understands the concept, rather than this psychobabble that you were trying to explain before. Okay, and one thing is if it's not crystal clear in your head, it's definitely not going to be crystal clear in your writing. So this is another reason why we go for simple ideas that are easy to explain. Okay, and as I just demonstrated, the idea of the brands and whatever, and the status and the being associated with the brand values and whatnot, it's not, I understand it, but it's not crystal clear in a way that I could explain it so clearly. So there we are. Moving on. Do you think it's a positive or negative development? It's definitely a negative development, in my opinion. This is because some of the values these brands emit. No, I'm not going to take that route. I'm going to say it's a negative development because sometimes it creates more demand than supply. Sometimes it can create problems for people who do not have the money to buy expensive brands. This can lead to other problems, such as bullying in the schoolyard. Another reason why it's a negative development is because other values are pushed aside. These are the values could be, as I was saying, ecological manufacturing, equal working conditions, not using child labour, and so on and so forth. And these values are pushed aside. These values are now secondary to the more famous brands who are just ignoring them and pursuing other values, such as, sports and athletics or whatever. Okay, so yeah, it's a negative development. And that's both of the body paragraphs taken care of. Okay, I could even develop an example there. For example, unfortunately, the number one selling trainer brand in the UK is Nike, which doesn't have the best track record for working practices. Okay? Other brands such as XYZ has a strong reputation for for paying working living wages for its many employees in lesser developed countries. Okay? And again, we're not really getting tested on sort of like the facts, because actually, now that I think about it, Nike does have good working practices, apparently. Okay? But, that's another issue. We're not going to get into this. But I'm just saying it's definitely valuable to put in an example there. Okay? So I might go with a lesser known brand that has had serious allegations against it in the past. Okay? So there we go. And then I've got my both body paragraphs sorted out. I've got from the notes. Now I can start my introduction. Then I can write it following the plan, following a system. If I've got that system, the students on our online course given a system, given a structure to follow. And the same for body paragraph 2, and then your conclusion will be something similar to what you write in your introduction. And there we go, straightforward. Let's move on. Okay, let's do one of our students' most favoured questions. To what extent? Some listeners might say, "Oh, he took the easy one out with a double question." Well, let's make it spicy. Some people think the primary purpose of schools is to turn the children into good citizens and workers, rather than to benefit them as individuals. Interesting. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Now, the tricky thing is with this is like, to what extent do I agree with the opinion? Okay, but there's two opinions there, or to what extent do you agree or disagree with the two opinions that we've given you, or the two sides of the opinion? It's ridiculous, and it really is frustrating, but I'm going to share with you how we teach our students, and these students regularly pass these exams. So let's jump into it. Some people think the primary purpose of schools is to turn the children into good citizens or workers. Okay, so I'm going to say, rather than to benefit them as individuals. To what extent? I'm going to say I completely agree that schools do turn children into good citizens and workers. I strongly agree with this idea. This is because it creates more civilized societies. Crime rates can be reduced. Also, what are the benefits would be? Okay, also it produces better workers, which means there's more productivity, which means there's more wealth in the economy, which ultimately benefits more people because of the taxes and the redistribution of this wealth. Okay, so that was a very hefty, a very extended development. Okay, now I could even put a for example. Yeah. Second paragraph. Okay, the idea of schools producing citizens, producing exemplary citizens and workers rather than developing them as individuals is flawed. This is because when a school produces a child that is an exemplary worker, they often tend to benefit individually themselves. This is because, okay, and I'm going to develop it. And then to say, a happy worker or a happy citizen is going to feel more accomplished as an individual. They're going to feel more part of the collective. And they're going to be, and studies have shown scientifically and empirically that individuals who feel that they fit into groups are more likely to be content and to be happy. Okay? And I'd probably just extend it a little bit more. But I'm agreeing with the first one, and then I'm saying that this does actually help them as individuals as well. So probably I'm agreeing with the first one and I'm disagreeing with the second one. Okay, so it's slightly a little bit more tricky, but if you do something like our online course, we give you a full sort of like rundown on how to do these, and it becomes quicker and easier, so you can do them on the fly. You just need to follow a system in place. And then that's only the first part, generating these ideas, organizing them. Once you've done that, you can drop them into a template and start writing, and your essays improve significantly after dropping them into, for example, a C2 template that we have on the online course. By the way, in August, we're doing a very special promotion where you'll be able to get a hold of this online course with the C2 templates at a very interesting new price, drastically more economical than what we've sold it before. We're taking a new direction, which I'll share with you in more podcasts coming up soon. This podcast is probably going to be published in August, so you might want to check out IELTSPodcast.com, and you'll see our new promotion where you can get the online course for a very good economical rate. Next question. Let's do to what extent you agree or disagree again. The best way to make road transport of goods safer is to ask drivers to take a driving test each year. To what extent do you agree or disagree? This one's slightly easier. There's one opinion. With that one opinion, we can completely agree or completely disagree. Personally, I think yes. I strongly agree. So it's asking me to what extent, and very much, I totally agree. But you know what? I might actually just look at both sides and say something. So let's see. Body paragraph 1. Taking tests every day for lorry drivers and those responsible for transporting merchandise. Okay. Just wanted to vary the vocabulary there. Taking a test annually, again, synonyms there, instead of each year. Taking a test annually, an obligatory annual test for those responsible for transporting merchandise is definitely a wise idea. This is because, road regulations might change, especially with the development of technology. 2, the eyesight or other physical abilities of the driver might fall with age, especially if they are at the older end of the legal driving limit. An annual driving test will help keep the roads safer, as the ones with with physical impairments will be taken off the roads, and ultimately this will lead to safer roads. Third reason, what else could there be? Those 2 reasons: new rules and regulations. Actually, I could say 3: the extra tax raised from the application fees could be put into programs to help improve road safety. So there's 3 reasonable reasons there. Again, it's not a test of intelligence, the IELTS exam. It's a language test. We're asked for the test, but we're asked to show the quality of our ideas, of our language, sorry. So 3 reasons there, and that's fine. Next body paragraph. However, there could be a few drawbacks to having such a system. Firstly, it could be costly and time-consuming for lorry drivers, historically, they have not had the highest wages, and now asking them to perform more tests and more regulations and take more time is just yet another burden, discouraging workers and ultimately stealing time and money from their pockets. Okay, for example, and then I could just give an example. I said historically because recently in Europe, anyway, this situation has changed and there's a shortage of lorry drivers at the moment. But anyway, so that's why I said historically. Another reason why it's a bad idea is because, let's see, it's opening up the opportunity for more corruption. In a lot of countries, people are already bribing driving test officials just to give them a green light or just to approve their driving test, and taking more tests is just going to enrich more corrupt officials. Okay, so I know that in some countries you can pay for your driving license if you don't want to do the test. In most European countries, though, however, that's not the case. But I'm looking for the disadvantages of taking tests or forcing lorry drivers to take more tests each year. Also, I could say it could discourage future drivers from entering the sector if they find that they have to do these tests every single year. This would ultimately lead to less lorry drivers and possibly increase the cost of their services and ultimately add to the cost of everyday expenses that are being transported on the road, ultimately hurting the end consumer. Okay, so you can see in both examples there, I used the cost argument, the cost angle. And this is the good one because once you've mastered the cost vocabulary, you can use it again and again and again. And you can incorporate the cost the cost argument in, I would confidently say, at least 50%, probably more, 50% of all the IELTS Task 2 questions. You can twist it round to look at the cost argument, maybe for the government, maybe for the worker, maybe for the student, whichever way you can use the cost argument. And once you've mastered that vocabulary, it just becomes, you're using the same vocabulary again and again, whatever the topic is. That's one of the little tips, as well as the cost vocab checklist that we give to our students in our online courses, and it just makes the whole thing easier. Now you're preparing, now you've mastered vocabulary that you can use in 60% of your answers. That's pretty powerful. If you want even more help, you can get that checklist at IELTSPodcast.com when you join our online course. And as I said, come visit us, because very soon we're going to have the most attractive offer we have ever had. And the online course, which we've been selling for quite a while now, is going to get not only an upgrade, but is going to be the most economically priced we've ever priced it. So have a look at that, and that's at IELTSPodcast.com, and that's going to be throughout August only. Okay, throughout August. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you a super day and good luck with your IELTS preparation.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.